Hey guys, Chrome A2D Radio, lazy booking. You know, me and Tito Santana, we don't necessarily get on the same page. But one thing we can agree on.
A2D Radio, best in the business. No.
You heard it here. Let's go.
Arriba!
Everybody, I'm Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and everybody's got a prize for lazy booking. Hey, this is your limit hero, Kurt Angle, and you're listening to the Lazy Booking. No, it's true. It's damn true. Ho! Hey, folks, I'm WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and if you want to know what's going on in wrestling, check out Lazy Bookings. Ho!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of Lazy Booking right here on A2DRadio.com. Brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy with the Dr. Paul Vidal, who will take care of all of your specialized physical therapy needs. So, visit him at www.specializedphysicaltherapy.com.
What's up, fam? Lazy Booking back. It's been a while.
Yes, it has
right
been.
Before Survivor Series. Chrome, Maddie's back with us. Mr. Ryan Brodo on the ones and twos. Hey, we got some new digs, work in progress. But, guys, this place is going to look fantastic in the new and what is going to be and is already improved Real Talk Studios.
Yes, absolutely.
Here on A2D Radio. Our topic of conversation tonight is going to be centered around Mr. Tito Santana.
Yes.
Who, folks, the interview nobody ever thought was going to happen. Tito Santana is going to be our guest momentarily. We're going to be getting Tito on the phone. He's going to join us. But our topic of conversation brought to you by ATS Sports Picks. It is WWE TLC was successful. Agree, disagree. Hit up atsportspick.com. Right, and 20% off. Use the promo code A2D. For all you junkies out there, get it in, do it. Let's go. But agree, disagree. WWE TLC was a success. I think that we're going to dive into that later, though, because we have the matter at hand. We're going to get our guy on the phone here. Real quick reflection before we get Tito on the phone.
Of TLC?
Well, no, of Tito's career.
Oh, okay.
Quickly, what about, how would you surmise his career in terms of memory and what you would consider his legacy?
I would say he was like the guy who was kind of that first, like, when WWE was trying to go national and they needed to establish their mid-card, they established it with him.
Okay.
You know, and he was the Intercontinental Champion during that revolution, or a period of time during that revolution. And he was the guy when you thought about, like, yeah, you loved Hulk Hogan, but before Macho Man got there, because he was still doing his father's promotion before he came to WWE, he was kind of that guy that was in the mid-cards, like, yeah, Tito Santana, the Intercontinental Champion, yeah, I like him. He established that mid-card sort of feel and vibe to that company.
Yeah, and, listen, we all know, what my opinion of him. But I will say, I did a lot of my homework for this, and, Tito's got a book coming out. It's called Don't Call Me Chico. We're going to talk about his book. We're going to reflect on his career. And I will admit that there's probably some things that I was off base with Tito over the years. And I'm looking forward to talking about it with him. We're going to get him on the phone. We ready to roll, guys? Let's do it. All right.
I think we are.
Hopefully he's not eating like Sid was.
Yeah. So let's see here. Do we have
Hello?
Mr. Tito Santana on the phone?
Yes.
Tito,
Yes.
how are you, sir?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Wonderful. We want to welcome you. This is Lazy Booking on A2DRadio.com. Tito Santana, WWE Hall of Famer, two-time WWE, WWF Intercontinental Champion, two-time Tag Team Champion, one of the real workers of the business. We're happy to have you on, Tito, and we know you have a book that you have just released, and I saw you were getting some of your pre-orders out called "Don't Call Me Chico." And we're looking forward to talking to you about that, Tito. And we want to talk a little bit and reflect on some of your career.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Tito, we're going to go back and we're going to kind of just talk about when you broke into the business. You were trained by Hiro Matsuda and Bob Orton?
Yes, actually, I guess you guys know the story that Tully Blanchard and we played football together at West Texas State.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Blanchard set up for me. I guess they wanted me to get some experience before I'd come wrestling in San Antonio, because their idea was to use me in San Antonio at some point as a Mexican star.
Mm-hmm.
So they set up for me to go train with Hiro Matsuda, and Barry Orton was also breaking in, and so Bob Orton's father, was still around, and he was trained in Barry Orton, so he started helping me out too whenever Hiro Matsuda was not there.
Okay. Yeah, so let me ask you this. Working with Hiro Matsuda, we've heard a lot of the stories. I know Hulk Hogan talks about having his arm broken and whatnot. What was your experience like through training with him?
Well, I don't think he made it easy for you. You worked hard, but he didn't try to stretch me, or that's what we used to call it.
Mm-hmm.
He was very nice to me. I guess I came across as highly recommended by Terry Funk and Joe Blanchard and Tully Blanchard, and I guess I came across that I had a good attitude. I was not a smart ass, and I wanted to learn, and he actually was very gentle with me, and as a matter of fact, he just told me Barry Orton was in there working out with his father, and he was doing high spots and working like a heel already in the ring. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you had a father in the business came a lot easier for you, because they'd been around the business. So Barry was ready to showboat, and I would say that he was, ahead of me, because I had no knowledge about the business. I wasn't a fan. So Hiro Matsuda, saw that I was, sincere and I wanted to learn. And so he just said, he told me, forget about doing high spots. He says, you need to know how to, there's 7 takedowns, and we worked on the takedowns and learned how to take a bump. You don't have to worry about high spots. You can have a match with anybody if you know the 7 takedowns. And we worked and worked and worked, and he taught me how to hit the ropes and how to take a backdrop, and step by step, and just kept learning a little bit more. Every time we worked, but we did put some time in the ring, and it was pretty bruising, and I'd get home and I'd be all purple and all beat up, and just the ropes would be the ones that beat you up, because those ropes are not they're hard ropes, and you have to hit them with your lats, with the side of your body there. And, this is very important to learn how to hit the ropes, because if heaven forbid the rope breaks, you got to be in a position to stop yourself with the right foot.
Tito, do you remember your debut match?
My debut match was against a guy that was 300 pounds. A TV. We had a TV match, and I can't remember his name, but he was a big, heavy-set guy, and we had a 10-minute draw. My very first match, and by the time my match was over, I mean, I had played college football, professional football, and I had never been so exhausted.
Yeah.
As I was when that match was over, and I was just so happy that the bell rang. The 10-minute draw was over.
Not bad, Tito. You didn't take a loss in your first match out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was undefeated.
So, Tito, I believe you started in WWE for the first time, or your WWF for your first run was 1979 and 1980?
Yes.
Can you tell us about when you first were contacted by WWF about coming in for either, if it was a tryout back then, or if they kind of already had you solidified as an idea of what they wanted to do with you?
I think they had me solidified, but in the business, I started out in Florida, then I went to Atlanta, then I went to Charlotte, then I went to, I was getting put higher and higher on the card, with experience. As a matter of fact, I wrestled in Atlanta and Charlotte under the name of Richard Blood.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to wrestle for Dick Murdoch and Blackjack Mulligan that bought Amarillo territory from the Funks. And they promised me they were going to make a big Mexican star out of me. And I got there, and, Dick Murdoch was a babyface, and so I'd be competing with him. So, by that time I knew the business a little bit more. And my first TV match, I had to do a draw with Stan Lane. And right away I figured out, if they're going to give me a big push, I'm not going to go draw on my first match on television.
Yeah.
So, I was pretty unhappy from the beginning. And about 2 months later, Andre the Giant came into the territory. I don't know if you guys knew, but Andre would hit all the territories, and he'd stick around for about a week or two and do the battle royals.
Yep.
And I had become real good friends with Andre the Giant. And when he left at the end of his 2 weeks, he took a tape from Mario Savoldi was refereeing and helping run the territory, but he knew that I was getting kind of a screw job there.
Mm-hmm.
So they stuck a tape so they could take to Vince Sr., so they could show Vince Sr., me. That's how I got introduced to Vince Sr. And before you know it, I get a phone call. I'm going to New York. And
wow.
It was the happiest thing, for me. I kind of learned the business pretty quick because I wrestled with, great guys that took a liking to me and showed me the business. And, I was an athlete and I listened and I watched, I was always watching and studying wrestlers. And it was a pretty quick thing for me to come to New York, the biggest territory in the world, and all of a sudden to get teamed up with Ivan Putski, and get the tag team belts.
Yeah, that was your first WWF title, correct? Was the tag team titles? I think that was October 1979.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, working with a legend like Ivan Putski, there's a clear sign that they had plans for you to work with these kind of guys.
Yeah. Did it feel like a sort of did you kind of have like a kind of feel of whiplash or what have you when you left the territory that you were at and you went to New York? Because a lot of the wrestlers have always said that New York is very, very different from all the other territories. What was that feeling like? Like when you saw the matches or when you were in a match at New York for the first time? Was it like, did you feel like a very different vibe from it? I know that a lot of people like to say that, but New York was very different from a lot of the other territories.
Well, when I first got here, I found out that, this was a big man territory.
Mm-hmm.
So, in Georgia Championship Wrestling, in Florida, in Charlotte, you did have the big guys, but not as many as that New York was known for. Mm-hmm. Bruno Sammartino, he was, he went up against, big guys, so that they weren't doing the arm drags and they weren't doing the drop kicks and they weren't, they weren't the high flyers. And, they say that I was probably the one that introduced flying head scissors and drop kicks in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, it was a different business, I saw, the fans didn't expect the wrestling match, the scientific wrestling match. They wanted a little bit of wrestling and a fight in the ring. They were used to big men fighting and punching and kicking.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn how to incorporate both. Because I was a wrestler, but you had to show some fire with some punches and, you know, kicking some butt in the ring too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tito, actually, I'm glad that you brought up Andre. HBO did a really very, very well done documentary on Andre. And I had actually spoken to Tim White about this as well. But there was a story told about when Tim White was first introduced to Andre. And I believe it was you who was at the table. I think you guys were playing cards in the locker room, and Tim White had came in at the time. You know, if you weren't a wrestler, it was kind of, you know, not proper to just walk into the locker room uninvited. And Andre kind of stood up and for all intents and purposes, kind of chased him out of there. Do you remember that story?
Yes, I do. I mean, back then, you know, the wrestlers and the promoters, we used to protect the business. You know, I don't know how old you guys are, but you know, in the 70s and 80s, a lot of people believed that, you know, wrestling was totally in the up and up.
Yeah, I grew up in the 80s, so I remember when kayfabe was still a thing.
I missed that time period.
Maddie's a little younger, but I definitely can remember when kayfabe was still a thing, and then I mean, you believed everything, every feud and whatnot.
Yeah, well, I mean, because we didn't have the contracts. We only got paid on the money we drew. So in order for us to draw money, you had to convince the fans that what you were doing was real. And it was pretty close to real, you know. We knew the outcomes, but, you know, we didn't plan step by step like they do now. You know, we went out there and we learned, you know, like they told me, you got to listen to the people. The people tell you what they want. And I used to think when I heard that, what the hell are they talking about? Listen to the people, you know. And then all of a sudden you can hear the people. You know, all of a sudden, you know, you get into the ring and you hear the people and they do dictate. You know, they're the ones that, you know, dictate the match. If there's a good worker in the ring, they pick up on that. And you know, because what you did in New York didn't work in L.A., you know. Right. What you did in L.A. didn't work in Houston. So you couldn't do the same match, you know, if you were not a good worker and didn't listen to the people and gave them what they wanted. You know, the wrestling fan, there's no better than a wrestling fan. But if you didn't convince the wrestling fan that the work you were doing was legit, I mean, they'd boo the hell out of you, even if you were a babyface. You know.
Yeah.
So, since we were talking about the whole, you know, the kayfabe stuff and everything like that, and protecting the business, obviously, you were there during the time period when Vince Jr. took over, Vincent Kennedy McMahon took over the territory and then decided to go national with it. And then you became Intercontinental Champion during that period of time. What was it like? What was your opinion of him deciding to kind of take off territories, take the talent, and go national with the product and become kind of like the first national promotion?
Well, I remember being at TV and Vince Sr. had gotten sick, and I guess they knew he was sick, so that's when he turned the business over to Vince. And you know, Vince Sr. had a meeting with all the boys, and he says, after today, you know, Vince, we used to call Vince Vinny. Vince is going to take over, and you know, that day he became Vince. You know, that nobody called him Vinny anymore. And he took over, and we knew something was up. You know, and he would make comments like, "You guys are going to get better knowing than the NFL football players." And you know, he was right, you know, because we were over like $1 million all over the world, and people could recognize us because they could see our faces.
Yeah. In
football, you know, everybody's they weren't as recognizable as the wrestlers because they were underneath the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, we would come we used to do TV tapings every 3 weeks, and we'd come in and, you know, we're going to be going into Montreal. We're going to be going into LA. We're going to be going into, you know, all these different places. And all of a sudden, like, a lot of the guys were pissed off, and they would say, the old timers that were there, they would say, he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. They were pissed off because he stopped allowing the magazine guys. He was going to create his own magazine, so he didn't allow the old time magazine writers that had been writing stories on wrestling were not allowed in the building. Period. Especially into the locker room. Mm-hmm. So everybody was pretty upset. How in the hell are we supposed to continue to get over? We're not even in the magazines. And we weren't. Nobody was writing about WWE wrestlers for a long time, and nobody knew what was going on. And all of a sudden, boom, the WWE magazine started.
Yeah.
And it was a big hit. I swear that Vince, had the whole thing laid out. And he worked. But I don't remember WrestleMania 1 when he said, "This is for all the marbles. I've invested everything I got. Tonight it's either we either float, and get some air, or we're going to sink and drown. This is it."
Wow. That must have been tough because you were the first match.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask about that. You talk about, kind of how forward-thinking Vince was, when you talk about the magazine and touching on that, and kind of the obviously huge risk in the idea of WrestleMania, and putting his faith into you to go out against the Executioner in the very first match at Madison Square Garden with this crazy idea, or at least what was perceived to be this crazy idea at the time. So with that, can you kind of tell us about or talk about kind of the feel of going out there? Were you skeptical? And I also wanted to know, did you have a sense of pride or feel any kind of a pressure for being the first to go out and set the tone for what's become this huge thing now, this phenomenon?
I don't know if you guys remember, I had a big feud with Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Yes.
And I mean, we were selling out big arenas without Hulk Hogan. We were the first ones to be able to sell out the big buildings without Hulk Hogan in the card, as the main event.
If I'm correct, you were the first to wear what's now become the most beloved version of the Intercontinental title. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think Greg Valentine destroyed the older model of the title. Yeah, which is fascinating.
So, because I thought that me and Greg were hot, I thought this big show we were going to be in a meaningful match, and when I found out that I was going to be the opener, I was pretty upset. But I didn't say nothing, because I wasn't about to quit, over that match.
Right.
I didn't care if it was a WrestleMania or not.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty upset. And Vince Jr., Vince waited until probably about 3 minutes before I was in the curtain, anxious to get, go out. I wasn't happy, but I knew that I was going to be involved later on. So that, that kind of made me a little happy because, they wanted to put some, what do you call, add fire to the fire. I was going to make a run in with Valentine's match.
Mm-hmm.
But Vince Stone came up to me and he said, Tito, I just want you to know that, the reason you are on the first match is because I need for you to set the tempo. You need to get the people off their ass.
Mm-hmm.
And when he told me that, I mean, my attitude completely changed.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Then I realized, he must think a lot of my work, to put me there. I just had a completely, 2 minutes before I went out, instead of being moaning and groaning, I went out there and I said, I'm gonna show. It wasn't the easiest match because I wrestled with a guy who not too many people knew who was underneath the mask.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't have any heat. So we had to go out there and work our asses off to get the people going. But it didn't take much because the people were ready. I mean, they were ready for WrestleMania. all the build-up for that match, you know, the fans were ready, you know, and it turned out to be a great night.
Under the mask was it Buddy Rose, right? Who was under the mask? Did was there any reason given that you know of as to why he wore the executioner mask and why he wasn't just Playboy Buddy Rose going out there? Because I know he was big in territories. Was there any real reason why he had to be under a mask?
Well, you know, like a lot of guys, you know, we used to call them jobs. So, you know, he didn't want to do it because he had been big in New York. He had left a couple of years. He had been big, and you know, he just didn't. He probably figured that maybe he had another run in New York, and you know, for him to do a job and such a big show, you know, would have hurt his career. You know, that's the only thing that I can figure out.
Okay.
Speaking of WrestleMania, Tito, you were in the first 9 WrestleManias, and you've worked with some of the, you know, the cream of the crop. You know, the Funk Brothers, the Hart Foundation, Demolition. Guys who should be in the Hall of Fame, Demolition. The Brainbusters, Barbarian, the Mountie, Papa Shango. But interestingly enough, too, his very first singles match, you opened WrestleMania 8, or at least WrestleMania singles match for Mr. WrestleMania. Shawn Michaels was against you at WrestleMania 8 in the
Georgia Dome?
In the Hoosier Dome.
The Hoosier Dome, okay.
Do you remember at that time working with a young Shawn Michaels, and did you see that untapped potential or the potential that was on the horizon to become?
Well, everybody knew that that Shawn Michaels was going to get a huge push. You know, when they started building the Heartbreak Kid, and we all knew. I mean, Shawn was a great worker. I mean, he kind of a smaller. You know, I always thought that Mr. Perfect was a great worker. Shawn Michaels was a little smaller version of Mr. Perfect, and he could do unbelievable things in the ring. But I remember Harley Race saying that he had heard that he was going to be, you know, the next superstar. You know, and so, you know, for Harley Race to say that, Harley Race knew something.
Yeah.
Just out of pure curiosity, I know WrestleMania 8. Wrestling Shawn Michaels, you had the El Matador gimmick by that time. What was the reason why you were given the El Matador gimmick instead of just being just Tito Santana, the former Intercontinental Champion?
I have no idea. You know, I would try to talk to Vince, and Vince, you know, I would tell Vince, I said, Vince, you're not getting the most out of me. I have so much more to offer. But, you know, because I was such a good worker, you know, I could put guys over and stay over myself, you know, because the fans would still, you know, be behind me, and they could, you know, give me a couple of good wins, and, you know, I could be right on top again. And that's what Vince told me one time. He says, Tito, you know, there's the bottom, there's the middle, and there's the top, and you go from the middle to the top and back to the middle. You never go lower than the middle. He says, I use you to get, you know, guys over. And, you know, I don't know if you guys realize, but, you know, they would put me with guys that didn't know how to work, and I would teach them how to, you know, how to work.
You could see that. And, you could definitely see that.
I mean, there were some guys, you know, the Warlord, you know, he was so afraid to talk in the ring, and I would call the spot for the Warlord, and then I'd have him repeat it because he was afraid to talk in the ring. And, you know,
I believe you were the infamous. You were the person who eliminated him in the infamous 8-second elimination at Royal Rumble. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's a highlight that'll live in time.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you too. What I would probably consider your biggest feud of your career, and if you, maybe I'm wrong on this, but you know, you've worked with guys, particularly when you look at your title programs, Don Morocco, Greg Valentine, we mentioned, Ivan Putski. But I know when you took your hiatus in the early 80s away from WWE, and you worked in AWA, New Japan, Georgia Championship Wrestling, Mid-South, and whatnot. I know a few other places. You started working with Rick Martel. And then you guys obviously came to WWE and became Strikeforce, won the tag team titles, and then, you guys kind of had a really hot feud for a while there. Can you talk about what it was like to work with and against Rick?
Well, I mean, Rick was another guy who was, very, very talented. I mean, as far as ring knowledge, he had fire. We kind of complemented each other. So teaming up with Rick, we first teamed up in the AWA, and we went against the High Flyers. We got over real big in the AWA, and the fans wanted us to beat Greg Gagne and Jumpin' Jim Brunzell, but Greg Gagne was the son of the owner, so that wasn't going to happen. But we got over really big there. So when I had a chance to get together, with Rick again, it was like a no-brainer when Vince asked me if I wanted to team up with him. I really enjoyed it, and then when we worked against each other, the trends. I didn't realize it. I don't think Rick had ever worked heel before, but I mean, he made a great transition.
Yeah,
and he had a lot of heat as the model, and we used to compliment each other. He was a great heel, and we both knew how to work. We both, we were in our prime. I mean, we were as good as it got as far as being able to work in the ring.
Yeah, a couple more. To me, that was probably your most memorable and hottest feud, just because of the kind of the backstory. And I know you also defeated him in 1989 for the King of the Ring. I wanted to talk kind of when you transitioned out of WWE, because and maybe I'm a little bit off on this, but I was just kind of looking at some dates because I found the timing interesting. I have your last match you worked actually here in New Jersey, again in Wildwood with Damian Demento. Is that correct for WWE?
I don't remember.
You probably wouldn't remember, right?
No.
But the reason I ask is, so what would eventually become Extreme Championship Wrestling? You became the Eastern Championship Wrestling champion, defeating again Don Morocco, a guy from your past WWE feuds, and became the World Heavyweight Champion there, and that was obviously in Philadelphia, right around the corner from where we're at. I just found it interesting because when I did look up some of those dates, your match you worked last with WWE was after that Eastern Championship Wrestling title win. So I was just curious if, they had kind of known you were wrapping up with WWE and let you work some other dates elsewhere, or kind of figure out your next steps, or, what was the next step after WWE?
Well, I decided to leave the WWE. I remember I was in Montreal, and most of the guys that I ran around with were gone. They had gotten rid of. Linda McMahon used to call us the dinosaur.
I'm Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and everybody's got a price for lazy booking. Hey, this is your living hero, Kurt Angle, and you're listening to Lazy Booking. Go, it's true. It's damn true. Ho! Hey, folks, I'm WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and if you want to know what's going on in wrestling, check out Lazy Bookings. Ho!
What's up, fam? Sorry about that little technical difficulty, but we are ready to go We are brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy. Find them in Burlington, Cherry Hill, Princeton, New Jersey. Dr. Paul Vidal, SpecializedPhysicalTherapy.com. We're going to get Tito back on the phone. He's been so kind and patient with us. We're going to call him back right now. Tito.
Yeah.
I apologize for that, Tito. Live broadcasting. But thank you so much for your patience. We appreciate it, Tito. Couple things, and then we want to get into real quick. We're going to jump right back into it and talk about your book. Do you watch the current product, Tito?
No, I don't.
Okay, because I was curious. There's been obviously you really are a pioneer and a trendsetter in terms of, the Mexican wrestler in the United States. And there has been such a push with guys like Rey Mysterio and, a young kid, Humberto Carrillo and Andrade. So I was just curious what your opinion would have been on that. What do you, when you went into the Hall of Fame in 2004, can you just briefly tell us kind of what that moment was like for you?
Well, when I got a phone call to let me know that I was going to be in the Hall of Fame, I didn't realize how big it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I had gone to a couple of years earlier when Pedro Morales was inducted into the Hall of Fame. It was in Baltimore. It was in a small air place. Very few people showed up. So I thought it was going to be a similar thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when I arrived, and in the limousine, my family came from Texas. Vince sent 2 big limousines to my house to pick us up. My mom was there, and when I got off and got off, and I think we were staying in the Hyatt in New York City. People from all over the world. I mean, WrestleMania. I had never been there as a fan, and to see all the fans and people coming up to get my autograph and stuff, I realized, how big it had gotten, because, when I left, I stopped watching the product. I was busy, traveling and, doing shows on the weekends, and I was never, to be honest with you, I was never a fan to sit and watch my matches or anybody else's matches. I just enjoyed working in the ring. I didn't like watching it on TV.
Tito, what are you doing now?
Well, I'm a school teacher. I'm a full-time school teacher, and I make a few appearances a year, and just got done writing this book. And the last 3 days, I promised people that I was going to get the book before Christmas, and I've been working my butt off to put them in envelopes and send the books out.
Still a worker in everything he does, hardworking. Tell us a little bit about the book, Tito. It's called Don't Call Me Chico, correct?
Don't Call Me Chico, and Kenny was the one that came up with the idea. Jesse the Body Ventura was the first one to start calling me Chico.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I didn't watch the matches, and I'd get to the arenas, and all of a sudden fans are calling me, "Hey, Chico!" It kind of pissed me off. It was pissing me off at the beginning, and then I just happened to watch it, and I heard Jesse doing the commentating, and I said, "Oh, now I know where the fans are getting the Chico from." So. Then I wasn't getting pissed off at the fans anymore.
What can we expect in your book?
Well, you can expect, the upbringing that I came from, from migrant worker, and, the breaks in life that I got. Education became very important. It was my 8th grade coach that got me into sports, and ended up getting a football scholarship, and played professional football for a couple of years, and got into wrestling, and a lot of people have helped me along the way. And we get into, talk a lot about wrestling, and, life wasn't easy on the road, wrestling 350 days a year, missing, special days at home with my wife and my kids, were very painful. And, so now that I finally, when I left in '93, I just didn't like being on the road anymore. So I got offered a position to go to the WCW, and I just didn't even consider it. When I left the WWE, I was down being in the road. It was a very hard time. So we talk about ribs, and we talk about my runs and matches, and pretty much everything, a little bit of everything in my life that happened, from the time that I was 7 years old to probably a couple of years ago.
Where can we find the book?
If you go to titosantana.com, you can get a pre-order from PayPal. And again, if you can get the order in, there's a promotion that if you get the order in, I'm going to be making a phone call. I'm going to start making the phone calls next week and try to get as many phone calls as I can. I might not promise, if you ordered on the 24th, I'm going to wait. I'm going to make phone calls to anybody who orders until the 24th. I might not get the phone call before Christmas. Those of you that wait until the 24th, but I'm going to start from the people who ordered first, and go as quick as possible and give them a quick shout, and I never stop appreciating the fans. So I promised I was going to call, and I am going to call.
Tito, any social media or anything like that you want to promote?
Well, I'm on Facebook as Merced Solis, my real name, and I'm also doing Cameo, and to me it's unbelievable the number of requests that I'm getting. Coco Beware is the one that talked me into doing it, and I just keep getting requests, and I'm so grateful because the fans let me know, how much I meant to them, and it never gets old to hear the fans say that you were a big part of my growing up years. Thank you for the entertainment, and now the network that the WWE has. The little guys that are big wrestling fans of Tito Santana, it's unbelievable. It gave us like a rebirth. The network has helped us out. I never in my life would have ever thought that I'd still be, benefiting from wrestling, and it just keeps on going.
That's amazing. And I have one request for you, Tito. I think I told you, and you probably think I'm nuts, but you've actually been a huge influence on this show. And my character, my persona is heel Chrome. I got to challenge you to a match, Tito. Can I get a match with you? You said you do a couple a year. Heel Chrome versus Tito, WrestleMania 36. Can we make it happen?
That sounds like a good plan. I know I can't trust you, but I can still move in the ring. So whenever you want, just make the call and I'll be there.
All right, I love it. You heard it, guys. WrestleMania 36. We got to get Vince on the phone. Tito, thank you so much, guys. Check out his Cameo. Find the book. Don't Call Me Chico. TitoSantana.com. You can find it there. You can find him on Facebook, Merced Solis. He's very interactive on there because I am friends with him on Facebook. Very interactive with the fans. So, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us tonight. We want to wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
And the same to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tito. Thank you. Take care and have a great night.
Okay. Arriba.
Arriba. All right. Bye-bye.
All right,
guys. Then. Tito Santana, guys. This was more than I think we expected, Maddie.
Absolutely. Stuck with us after the technical issues, which was awesome of him to do. You know?
Man, he's a good he's a good guy. And listen, I told you guys, we dropped that video I think last month. Where Tito cut a little A2D promo for us. It was just a little teaser. We weren't ready to announce anything yet. But that was just a little teaser for you. So stick with us, guys. There could be more on the horizon. But, 4 years of doing this show, over 2 years now on A2D Radio. Tito Santana has been a big part of this show, and obviously for a lot of us, a big part of our growing up. And it is interesting now, the timing that we have him on. So unfortunately, he doesn't watch the product now, but he's a busy guy. He's a school teacher. But with the push for Mexican wrestling now, you're probably going to hear his name a lot more when they start talking about and they continue to push these Mexican stars of Tito Santana.
Yeah, absolutely. With the rise of many more Mexican wrestlers, Mexican-American wrestlers, luchadors, and such like that, it continues to grow in that side.
So thanks to Tito. That was awesome. Good stuff. And I think with that, guys, we're going to hold off on TLC. We could talk about that stuff next week.
It's an event that we can push back.
Not much to speak about on that. Notable thing this week, Rhea Ripley wins the NXT Women's Championship over Shayna Baszler after a long run.
Yes.
I mean, she's been champion since October of last year, Evolution.
Christ,
it's pretty huge. I know. I'm going to be very interested to see what they do with Shayna going forward. But guys, if you stuck with us, we appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Tito. We did.
Yes.
And I have to say, Heel Chrome may have turned face for Tito Santana. And even before this interview, I did my research more. I watched a little bit. I talked to Tito last month. I was kind of on the fringe anyway, but man, that was a great interview, and we really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's awesome to hear from an inside perspective of someone who was there. And he was there when the big transition happened from WWE being just WWF and then the territory to then becoming the big national, then eventually global promotion that it has become.
And listen, obviously, he's still a worker.
Yeah.
He hung in for us. He did the work for this. And as you can hear, just talking to him, he's out there making phone calls to people, trying to get him in before Christmas, just simply to say thank you for buying his book.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to check it out. I hope all you guys do. Again, find it on titosantana.com. You can find him on Cameo. He does videos for people. You can find him on Facebook. With that, thank you to our sponsors as well. Specialized Physical Therapy. Thank you to ATS Sports Pick. And Maddie, this is the last time I'll see you before Christmas.
Well, then a Merry Christmas to you, both Chrome and Heel Chrome. That has somewhat turned babyface.
Just for the night.
Just for the night.
Just for Tito. And I didn't even mention this. You keep the music going. Totally forgot to even mention. I put it in a post in some of the groups. For anybody that has shared this group or shared this video and loved the video, we will be entering you into a drawing, and next week we will pick 2 random winners to win an signed 8x10 of Tito Santana. Not these 2.
But not this exact
These are my
one.
personal collection.
No,
but there are 2 that you guys I'm going to be sending out there. So little gift from us for checking us out, sharing us, and sharing the wealth. So for Maddie, for Chrome, Mr. Ryan Brodo, stick with Maddie. Maddie's going to be back at 10 o'clock with Hockey Happy Hour with the fellas.
Oh, yeah. Flyers kicking ass tonight.
Thank you again to Tito Santana. Merry Christmas from us to you guys from the Real Talk Studios. We love you. Have a good week.